This is the Misfit, Crystal Moon, and you're listening to Wrestling with Entertainment.
Alright, and the week after that, we got Ike the Bite. And we got some, hopefully some heavy hitters in the weeks to come. Keep a lookout for at Wrestling with E on Twitter for more announcements on that. And earlier this week, as we get into the news, PWI's top 150 women pro wrestlers came out, and Bianca Belair topped the list. Scooter, your thoughts on Bianca getting the #1 nod?
First, why can't PWI ever be consistent with the numbers? Sometimes it's top 100, sometimes it's top 200, based on the category. Set a concise number and pick it, and go do the friggin' work, and go find the talent from all across the country. Because I guarantee you there are more than 150 women who deserve to be on that list.
Ooh, interesting.
That being said,
yeah,
I can absolutely understand Bianca being on that list. She's been one of the hardest, most productive, and consistent workers, and an absolute workhorse in the ring. Maybe because I'm assuming that. Well, I'm going to assume that, and I have not seen this list yet, that somebody from AEW is #2.
You would be wrong. Atami Hayashida is #2 from Stardom. And I may have butchered that last name. I'm not quite sure.
Well, at least you didn't have to roll any R's.
Thank God. But you know what? The Japanese culture doesn't have the rolling R sound. So yeah, it's in my wheelhouse.
I mean, yeah, I agree with Bianca being at the top of the list.
What say you, Kaliko?
I'm not going to argue against it, but I could make an argument for Thunder Rosa being #1.
Yeah, I was thinking.
I was thinking because is Bianca. Put it this way: without that match at Mania, would she be #1?
Well, just to reference, Thunder Rosa is #5.
Yeah, Thunder Rosa was out, and rightfully so. She's top 5. But I could have made the argument.
What did Thunder Rosa do this last year, other than make an AEW a debut and had a lights out match with Britt Baker?
I think she was probably the most everywhere wrestler not in the WWE.
True.
So to me, if this is based on being a workhorse, then Thunder Rosa had it in spades. Not saying no offense to Bianca, because I'm not gonna say that she doesn't deserve it. I'm just saying an argument could be made for Rosa. For sure. Because considering that Britt Baker was the biggest name in AEW, Bianca was the biggest name in WWE as far as like a new talent. Because essentially she was just a fresh face away from the 4 that we're used to.
True.
So that's also a factor. But you can make the argument Thunder Rosa was like one of the most busiest women wrestlers, point blank, period.
Let's get into the rest of the list. as I said, number 2 is Atami Hayashishita. Number 3 is Deanna Purrazzo. 4 is Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. Number 5, Thunder Rosa. Number 6, Sasha Banks. 7 is Shuri. 8 is Io Shirai. 9 is Tam Nakano.
Tom Nakano.
Tom Nakano.
Who I believe is the daughter of Bull Nakano? Or they may have just taken their name. Don't quote me on that.
And number 10, Raquel Gonzalez.
She's old.
Any name sticks out to you on that list, Scooter? Does it kind of seem right? Does it kind of seem wrong?
I really think Chris Statlander deserved to be on this list.
Well, I'm sure she's on the list, but
Yeah, I mean top 10.
okay. Well, she did have that injury for much of last year, unfortunately.
I mean, this is the same people that had the Revival on their name wrestled in as a top tag team, and they ain't wrestled in months. So spare me.
Yeah, that's true. You know what kind of bothers? Well, maybe not bother me, but something I noticed. NXT doesn't get a lot of love in these PWI lists. I mean, Io Shirai was basically a staple of NXT for the last year and a half, and she only came in at 8. And Kaliko always makes the argument Adam Cole should have been number 1 last year on the men's list. NXT produces, well, they did produce some of the best talent, and I don't feel like it's been fully recognized on these lists. Agree or disagree?
Agree. Look, going over.
I agree with the caveat, but go ahead.
Yeah. Going over this full list. It's some of these are quite interesting. Our beloved Billy Starks is on the list.
101?
104.
104, my bad.
Davey Ann at 88, and rightfully so.
Leader of Squan Cheek Squad at 150.
Janai Kai.
So what was you alluding to, Kaliko?
The case that Io, because Io's been consistent. Last year she was 9, so this year she's 8.
I mean, she's tag team champions right now, and she was NXT champion.
But the only thing that the only thing I can make a case against Io was that for so long it seemed like it was Io and then everybody else. And the reason that I made the case for Adam Cole was because he had that one stretch in November where he was literally on every bloody show in a month and was whooping ass. And his competition was stronger than Moxley's. Io, while the competition is strong, Io and Raquel, her best match is probably Io and Raquel, her strongest match that you can make an argument for. Vice Bianca then had Bayley, Banks. She had even Lynch, even though it didn't last that long, but she's had heavy hitters, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not to mention winning the Royal Rumble and becoming the first African American woman to win the Royal Rumble. So there's a lot of history that she made, which was the precedent.
I definitely don't, doubt that Bianca should have been number one. I'm just saying that maybe there's a little impartialness to not NXT talent.
Mm,
Let's give it this.
I don't think so. Because on the men's side, it was represented very well. The women, it just seemed like they were kind of in that transition when it was EO and just nobody else. And that was the problem. When EO beat Charlotte, it was just EO and nobody else. Granted, you can make an argument that she made it relevant because when Raquel beat her, it was a big deal.
I think we could go through this list the whole duration of the show, which might not be a bad idea for a special going down the line.
Well, can we just give some love to Scornchy Squad, or the squad formerly known as Squatchy? Bring it up at 150, Becca. And can we please acknowledge the fact that there are 2 Oscars on this list?
Damn, Asuka's so good she came up twice.
Well, there was that whole rumor that Asuka was a twin a number of years back. And I believe this is the Asuka that is
Transgender.
transgender. So
Yeah.
Great to see wrestling progressing and recognizing.
Let's get into a little bit of bad news now. It was revealed earlier this week that good old JR has skin cancer. Let's really hope that he kicks out at 2 when it comes to this. No?
Yeah, I mean, then again, JR has been through some incredibly tough ordeals as it pertains to physical health, and he has fought with everything everything he has, and there's no doubt in my mind that he will come through this.
Yeah. But do you see this affecting his AEW status for the time being?
No, I mean, without a doubt, Tony Khan would most likely, if JR felt he had to take the time off, he would, and Tony would say, your job's waiting for you when you come back.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Again, thoughts and prayers with JR and his family. And let's get into why we're all here. We are wrestling with the G1 Climax 31 review. It was last Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Let's start with the A block. I'm just going to say somebody's name and how many points they got, and we'll kind of talk over their G1. Alright? The Great Khan at 8 points. Kaliko, how did Great Khan perform in his first G1?
Better than what Jeff Cobb did in his first G1. Jeff Cobb's the bar, so if you get more points than he got in his first one, then you're winning. He was solid. I mean, he wasn't. I think a lot of these people were solid. It's just that some people we were expecting to do better didn't do better, and some people we were expecting to do worse did better than what I thought.
talking about
But we'll
Sonata.
get to that. But Great O'Con, I give him a C. He did great.
Tomohiro Ishii ended at 10, but I mean, Ishii's been consistent in these G1s for like the last 10 years. And he's one of the only guys you could put him in the ring with one of the top talent, and there would be no problem. You would know Ishii would win. No, Kaliko?
That's why he's like the B- guy, because he's the guy where if you see him win, you'd be like, I get it. And if you see him lose, you'd be like, I get it.
Toru Yano ended at 10 points. Still impressive for Yano to get as far as he did, no?
I mean, Yano be getting cast with that same roll up, and I don't know how the hell. It's like that no one watches like film of what he does in G1s. It's just like, ow. Catches him with the same shit sometimes. And it's just like,
Yujiro Takahashi ends with 5 points. He had 2 wins, 6 losses, and 1 draw. It seems like his G1 ended the first night of the competition when he beat Kota Ibushi, and that was kind of it for him. Does Yujiro have a place in next year's G1, Scooter?
No, I expect him to be replaced by El Desperado.
So Despy makes a heavyweight run.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, let's move
Shingo Takagi ends with 13 points. That's 6 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. That last night of Black Play, he didn't lose the match, but again, it was a draw that essentially cost him the G1. Was this maybe a disappointing G1 for the champion, or was it okay because he's champion?
honestly, I think the story with him was this is the first stint in the tournament where he's the hunted rather than the hunter. So it seemed like his arc was like he was because he's the champ, so everyone's giving him his best shot every freaking time. So that I think that was the story arc of him, the pressure of being the man in that tournament and trying to do what Okada did at one point, which was win it as the champion, which is very difficult.
Next up, we got ZSJ at 12 points. Zack Sabre Jr. did very well. He got himself a win over Shingo Takagi, ended Naito's G1 on the first night, and beat Kota Ibushi, all in a matter of 3 matches. Strong presentation for ZSJ.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, we kind of almost expected ZSJ to win the whole thing.
I mean, he was the only he was one of the major Dread Gaijins in this tournament, so yeah, he did pretty well. I mean, he was in the running until that last night. Oh.
But we know how this goes. 50-50. He beat Shingo, but do you really think he's going to beat Shingo again?
Oh, no.
50-50.
Yeah.
50-50. As I'm said, 50-50.
Now we have Tangaloa. And Takalova hasn't done a lot of singles matches to begin with, but he got 6 points. Not the worst out of everybody. I mean, Yujiro got 5. But the thing that really stuck out in my mind was that he pretty much fucked up Shingo's ribs during their match together. Is there a place for Tangaloa in the singles division?
It depends because the tag division is so thin right now, and I feel like that they're the freaking foundation
That's
of it.
true.
So it was a good experiment to see how he can handle it, and I think they'll probably give him C minus because in his defense, he dealt with trials and tribulations that his brother did, but his brother was just so sly with it though,
I mean, Tama
and
Tonga
adapted him.
is such a tenured member of New Japan at this point. There's not a lot that can face him, right?
Nah, I don't think so. But I think that this was a good experiment. God, get your asses back together, get the tag title.
Now we got the guy that I had maybe winning the whole damn thing, Kenta at 12 points. I mean, he had a strong showing, and all he needed to do was win that last match against Kota Ibushi, and he didn't. But it seems like there's no love for Kenta in New Japan. I mean, he literally made a salad out of chicken shit last year with that briefcase. One of the more entertaining guys on the roster, and I feel like they continuously do Kenta dirty. Yes, no, maybe. Scooter, you want to start us off?
I'm sorry. I kind of drifted off into space. I had a mayhem moment. Repeat the question, please.
Is Kenta being done dirty?
Ooh, is Kenta being done dirty?
I
No.
mean,
No,
he
I
had
mean,
the briefcase for so long. He did more with it than Moxley had with the belt. He's one of the more entertaining guys in the ring. They could at least give him the block.
Or they could have just gave him the bell.
yeah, I mean, Kenta will land on his feet.
He kind of already has. He will be challenging Tanahashi for the United States champion on the Destruction Tour.
And don't be surprised if he wins it.
It wouldn't surprise me now. Next up, the winner of the A block, Kota Ibushi, ends the block with 14 points. We'll talk about the match with Okada when we get to Okada. But how did you feel Kota Ibushi did in this G1, Kaliko?
It's weird with Ibushi because they try to play him as the underdog, even though he's like a back-to-back winner. Just like that's the odd part. I feel like, and I was thinking this earlier. I was like, am I the only one that thinks that they should have pulled the trigger on Ibushi when he first got back? I feel like it's 3 years too late.
Now, moving to the B block, Yoshihashi ends with 6 points. Kaliko?
Praise.
Yoshihashi. The fact that he got 6 points pisses me off. But
And why is that?
He should be a negative 100. He's got no business being in this tournament.
Is there like a word that you could express all your feelings with that one word?
He said it. The audio just cut out when he did.
Oh,
Yeah, fuck Yoshihashi. That's what I.
there we go. Chase Owens, 4 points. It's such a situation when Yoshihashi gets more points than Chase Owens.
That's the worst part. But but Chase Owens is like the secretary bitch of the Bullet Club at this point. So you do damn well he wasn't gonna get shit. Come on, man.
And he will be chasing that dream.
Hiroki Goto, 6 points. It kind of seems like the twilight of Goto's G1 experience is coming to a close. No? Every year
He's going to be he's the Nagata of the tournament. The old head that won it before, and they're like, well, lightning could strike twice.
every, what, like 10 years? 'Cause from his original win to the finals with Omega was like 10 years.
That's my point. Like,
Yeah.
shit.
The dark horse of the whole tournament, Tama Tonga, 6 points. One of those 6 points was a win, and the only win on Kazuchika Okada. Is that why Tama Tonga was in this tournament?
Seems like it, because I don't think no one took him as a threat till he beat Okada. But I feel like Okada, they should just name this to the Okada G1, because that motherfucker, Jesus. Just name the tournament after him.
Hiroshi Tanahashi at 8 points. He's a staple of the tournament. I don't think anybody had him to win the whole thing. No.
A sentimental guy, pretty much.
Taichi at 6 points.
Disappointed. Thought he'd do better.
Really, even with Zach doing so well in his block.
He did better last year, I feel. Taichi.
Well, doesn't it kind of feel like Taichi has just kind of fit into that role as a tag team guy rather than a singles guy at this point?
Well, it just depends, because, the G1 last year, he was getting respect. So it ain't like they just mixed him in a tag team for the hell of it. It ain't like because we all, or at least, we thought he did pretty good last year.
But there was a
So that's why I was
cataclysm
disappointed.
last year.
True, but you would have thought, okay, if there were ever a chance for him to break through and be a threat, this would be it. Because it just seems like the people were on his side. It seemed like he was gaining ground with people, with the fans.
Well, speaking of somebody we thought would be a threat this year coming in, Sonata, 8 points.
The Sonata slaughter continues. just go somewhere, man. Just go to America. Just please, just leave. You hear this door opening? That's what I want. I want Sonata to do. Open the door and get the hell on out.
Go through that forbidden door.
He needs to kick it in.
Somebody that feels like they've been kicking in doors, Evil, 14 points. Is Evil even an interesting person to watch anymore? It feels like he's the only WWE-esque match on a New Japan card.
Well, the whole reason he turned heel was for the shock factor. So it made sense that they didn't have no goddamn placement for him afterwards. Because it just seemed like they did some WWE shit, for shock's sake.
Well, I mean, we could go all into everything he did last year, but it seems like, they kind of put him to be strong in this G1. Only one of the only people that had a chance that wasn't Okada or Cobb. And but when it comes to winning championships or being in that number 2 position, he always comes short.
But there was nothing based on the last year that screams threat from people.
Right.
He lost to Yano, bro.
Yes.
That tells you everything you need to know.
Next up, Jeff Cobb, 16 points. That's a far cry from what happened last year with Jeff Cobb, no?
Yeah.
Like a 180.
Considering he sets 2 records in this G1 with most points in a 20-man G1, as well as longest winning streak.
I didn't know that last one.
Yeah, 8 wins in a row.
Interesting.
I feel like that would have been Ospreay, but
Would
am I
anybody
the only
have
one that
believed
thinks
Will Ospreay got 8 wins in a row, though? I mean, when you look at Jeff Cobb, you could say, okay, I kind of understand that. He's a freaking monster. But Will Ospreay, the skinny English kid, no.
well, Jeff Cobb, I mean, but like I said, that faction had to be taken seriously. And the only way to take it seriously, either become champion or do some heavy shit in this G1. So I guess that was his moment to shine. Especially with Ospreay now coming back to take that faction seriously.
Let's talk about next year. Do you see Jeff Cobb doing as well next year in the G1? Especially if there's a Will Ospreay in the field?
They always put like 18 members from factions in the field. So I wouldn't be surprised if Ospreay and Cobb are in the same block.
That would be very interesting. I mean, he would have to wrestle somebody from his faction in next year, right? If he's actually in it.
Pretty much. And considering that Ospreay, remember, he went to the G1 years ago because he sounds good. But yeah, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they do that shit. Because New Japan is known to do that shit. Keep in mind, they had Evil and Sonata beat each other when they were in the same faction, and those were some wild ass matches. So yeah, I don't put it past New Japan.
I mean, this year they had Tamatonga versus Evil, and kind of having that diverge of the House of Pancakes, Torture, and actual Bullet Club.
Which is weird because it's like House of Torture, Firing Squad. Whatever happened to the Firing Squad?
They became just Bullet Club again.
That's my point. It's just like, it's just getting too much. I feel like the Bullet Club is like the United States. They're trying to be like Texas. They try to make their own Texas in the damn goddamn club and shit. But a whole nother story.
And let's get into the winner of the B block. We'll talk about his match with Kota Ibushi in a moment. Kazuchika Okada with 16 points. When we all started this G1, me and Drew were kind of on the baseline of this is Okada's G1 to lose. It's his redemption story, and if he didn't win this one, where would he go from this point on? We saw the return of the Rainmaker. What was your thoughts, Kalika, on this one?
Well, considering we all picked other motherfuckers, and the reason we picked everybody else because Okada winning was not. It's not something where we said he couldn't do it. It it's just something where it's like we're not surprised, right? Like,
Right.
and to me, I thought his story arc. It's crazy how his story arc is. It's been like up and down like a motherfucker. So I guess considering losing to Toro Yano for the King of Pro Wrestling title, hint hint, where the fuck that is now, and then and I guess that was the lowest point, and I guess he had no choice but to go up. And the G1, like you said, became his redemption tour, and we got the return of Okanos.
That we did. Now, it's great that it's the redemption story of Okada, but in the A block we had on the final night of block play we had 5 people in contention. In the B block we only had 2. Is when Okada is in a block, does it kind of make it a little less interesting because he's going to win at least 85% of his matches, Scooter?
Yeah, it does make it less interesting. I mean, given this is honestly the fact that Okada even got the spar again. I mean, I just.
80.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I get your point, Scooter, but the choice was binary as hell. Either Ibushi three-peats or you get Okada.
And we'll talk about that match in a moment. On the last night, the G1 finals, we got treated to a very unexpected match. It was a special exhibition 5-minute time limit match, grapple rules. Zack Sabre Jr. competed against Katsuri Shibata. This was more exciting than seeing Okada versus Ibushi. We haven't seen Shibata wrestle in over 4 years. What did you think of the match, and what do you think we will see from Shibata in the future, Kalika?
Well, considering Shibata has had that story arc of the injury damn near, the fact that he's even back in the ring is a miracle in itself, right?
Right.
So this is to see whether he can take it, and it seems like so far so good. I think they're just proceeding with caution because as much as everyone hates like the WWE style, they try to prevent shit like what happened in New Japan from happening. So,
Yeah.
and so glad that he's back. Let's see if he can take it more than that. And plus, it's Zack Sabre Jr. So Zack Sabre Jr. He ain't gonna hit you as fucking hard or anything like that. He's
He's a
just
pretty
gonna
safe guy to be in the ring with.
pretty much.
I'm sure Naito would disagree with that, but it's another story.
Oh, Naito probably in the hospital. Like I'm gonna fuck him up on site.
Scooter, is it maybe the wisest decision for Shibata to come back when he had an injury that maybe not a lot of wrestlers get during in a match, and maybe not as proven as others in the past? I believe he had he got a brain hemorrhage during his match against Okada 4 years ago.
I mean, good lord, that's how wrestlers drop dead in the ring. I mean, that's how. What was it? Was it Gary Hart? No, I believe Gary Hart had a massive heart attack in the ring.
Wow.
But no, I mean, if it's a one-time like hemorrhage, I mean, if it's a hemorrhage, it's usually that's usually it. So, I mean, no, it's not wise.
But I feel like we had this conversation when it came to like Edge and Sting and very different injuries. But I mean, medicine has really progressed in the last 10 years, so maybe it's better than if he got this maybe 20 years ago.
It depends on whether or not the hemorrhage is a permanent thing.
That is true, because as much as technology has evolved in the medicine world, what cannot evolve is how his brain adapts to the trauma.
Right. And do you think that this was obviously a test run if whether or not he could?
Pretty much.
Like you said, Zack Sabre Jr. isn't gonna fuck you up too badly. He doesn't he's not an EC style hitter. So, in all senses of the word, it was a pretty safe environment for him.
True, because if it was Tomohiro Ishii, then we have some problems.
But if he was okay after the match, it's okay. Lace him back up, right?
I think they're going to take it as slow as possible.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Japanese culture is like that. Come back, but he's not going to be doing 30-minute matches. And I don't think he's going to be in this. I feel like he's going to be involved in the story where it would force him to wrestle more so than him wrestling regularly.
I feel like he's a special attraction at this point. People want to see him rather than
exactly
just Shibata is wrestling in a G1 match. And that brings us to our last match, the finals of the G1 Climax Max to Max. Kazuchika Okada defeated Kota Ibushi in 25 minutes and 37 seconds via referee stoppage when Kota Ibushi attempted the Phoenix Splash, missed it and hit the mat and supposedly dislocated his shoulder. Kind of a anticlimactic end to the G1 Climax. No, guys?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, but if it's a real injury, that is the biggest blessing in disguise that they could have ever had. Because it seems like they're going full throttle with Ibushi, but the problem is that Ibushi, the first year he won it was good. The second year, they're starting to get that Roman Reigns 2014 feeling, and then this year they're like, what the fuck? So it's that's why I think it's a blessing in disguise, because New Japan literally being able to save face and say, hey, he's hurt. Okada. come back. Help
So,
us.
you think that this was New Japan's way of protecting the Bushi and giving him? What do you think that this was a legitimate injury? Do you think that Kota Bushi just didn't want to do the job? Wasn't Bushi supposed to win? What?
I think Ibushi was supposed to win, and I think the fact, because keep in mind he won last year, but he was one of the first. I think he's the only one that actually lost the briefcase.
Yes.
So that tells you, you see what I'm saying? That screams protection, and it's like and like I said, it's like they want him to be this underdog so bad, but he didn't conquer mountains, and it's like there's not really an underdog story with them. I feel like the underdog story was more connected with him and Omega, and they lost that when Omega left.
What about you, Scooter? Do you think Okada was supposed to win? Ibushi was supposed to win? Was this injury legitimate, or did Kota Ibushi didn't want to do the job to Okada?
I mean, coming off a Phoenix splash, which is incredibly risky, and I believe the injury happened upon impact.
I believe so. His arm seemed like it
Yeah,
hit the man, but it didn't. The arm that they were saying it was, and the arm that I saw it hit impact, seemed like two different things.
well, I'm picturing something similar to Eddie Guerrero's first match in the WWE, where he tore his entire arm after coming down on a frog splash.
Right, and they even alluded to that on commentary, and they were very vague as to what he had or if he would be when he was coming back. They, the president of New Japan said that he had a dislocation and was waiting further evaluation. And I will say, New Japan has never been very forthcoming with exactly the injuries that everybody's gotten. But it does seem a little bit kabuki-ish. No?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a dislocation of connecting with the fans.
Ooh, that's a burn. Because if it was just a dislocation, I mean, we saw John Moxley dislocate his shoulder in a match. He went in the back, he popped it back in, and he came back out and continued to wrestle. So, I mean, it wasn't exactly something he could not continue working on, especially if the match was only going to go another, let's say, 5 minutes, or maybe just end it there. Like, call the spot to go home.
That's why I said it was a blessing in disguise for New Japan to save face. That's literally what it was.
Now, Okada seemed very displeased with his win, even though he won, but, I mean, that's understandable. The real story about Okada winning is that he doesn't want the briefcase. He wants the original IWGP Championship as kind of a placeholder to wrestle Kota Ibushi in the future. Completely dismissing Shingo Takagi as World Heavyweight Champion. Is Okada going rogue, or is this a storyline, Kaliko?
Damn, it could be both because he was always vocal about the title changing anyway. So it kind of fits where his position from the Jump Street. Um, I think he's trying to bring the tradition back.
And I mean,
Either.
is that such a bad thing? I mean, we've talked about it on the show before. This world championship has been the bane of New Japan's existence at this point.
And if there's one person to bring it back, it would be him.
True.
But I feel like it would make sense if he won the other belt and then brought back that belt, a la Kofi Kingston ish.
Yeah.
Or Tanahashi when he brought back the new IC belt.
Well, he said, Okada said, let's bring it to a vote. Should we bring back the heavyweight championship or keep it the world heavyweight championship? Should it go back to the heavyweight or are we stuck with the world heavyweight?
I think we're stuck with the world heavyweight. I mean, we're really arguing over semantics at this point.
Yeah, in a sense, but only reason I give him his credence because Japanese, like usually tradition runs it all, and this change was so out of left field.
But doesn't Okada winning the G1 and not going to Wrestle Kingdom for the contract kind of break tradition in a sense as well?
It would be weird if he was the first person to win the contract and actively boycott fighting for the title. It's not like Naito where the people were like, fuck that guy, but it'd be something way out of left field and totally different. Which would be interesting because who would then be, if he's not going to wrestle, would they relinquish him as the winner and give him someone else the briefcase? And that's where I think Ibushi would be saving face. I swear to God, I swear. Do not be surprised if that happens. Oh, I don't want to fight for the title. Okay, we'll give it to the runner-up, Ibushi. Ibushi versus the guy.
Wow. But if they do actually give Okada the belt, we have three world champions: Okada, Takagi, and Ospreay, who's over here in America saying that he's world heavyweight champion. There's 3 nights of Wrestle Kingdom. So do you see the main event of one night being Okada Ibushi for the heavyweight, Takagi and Ospreay for the world heavyweight to unify those two, and then the third night of Wrestle Kingdom, Okada versus whoever wins that match. Let's say it's Takagi.
I think Okada would probably he would do 2, 3. I don't think he would do 1 and 2. Unless the story is that he's willing to go through hell to bring back tradition.
I think we'll stop the debate here and kind of continue following the story as it progresses. We will conclude our coverage of the G1 finals now. And now a quick word from our sponsor.